Hey guys, my name is Adam and I'm here with episode number 7 of the News Hub for the 1st of June 2013. The first topic I have to cover today is XCOM Enemy Unknown's port over to mobile or iOS devices. And also I want to talk a little bit about Jake Solomon, who is a lead designer of XCOM Enemy Unknown. He recently had a long interview with Shack News, and they ended up talking about this iOS port and what it would do for XCOM as a whole, so I'll be going into all of that. But here, before I start any of my analysis of this interview, I'd like to just point out that I am a gamer that strongly believes in the idea that every platform should pretty much have equal treatment. I don't agree with a lot of exclusive titles. When it comes to exclusives, I feel that it's just neglecting a certain portion of gamers. When you have things like Gears of War, you're leaving out the PC gaming nation here, and you're also leaving out the Sony PS3 nation. So you can't leave all those gamers out, at least in my opinion. I understand it's important to have some exclusives, but when you have major AAA releases being exclusive, it's kind of a problem. Also, I feel it's a little bit of a cheap move for Microsoft to be contracting people like this, because then development houses can't exactly get the amount of revenue that they were hoping for. Certainly, Microsoft pays them a hefty sum to keep it an exclusive on their system, but even still, I think that it should be more distributed. I think that all platforms should get a copy of Gears of War. And we're at a very interesting time in gaming where the current generation of consoles is dying out, and we're moving into the next gen, so I think now is the time for all the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 exclusives to start going everywhere, because why not? I don't think there's really a problem with that, and I know we're going to be seeing more Gears of War on the next gen. I know we're going to see God of War, or whatever it is that the PS3 has, but we're going to see a ton of exclusives, and it seems like it's moving in that direction where you're going to have some premium titles on each system, and you're going to have to choose between either PC, the PS4, or even the Xbox One. So as far as exclusives go, I'm not a fan, but I understand why they're there. That being said, Shack News ended up talking to Jake Solomon about XCOM's porting over to iOS. And first off, there is a huge question behind the motivation behind porting XCOM to iOS. Keep in mind that XCOM Enemy Unknown has been out for a year. I have done a full LP of the game, which took up a lot of parts, but I did do it. And I am very well informed on the game. I'm very knowledgeable on what the game plays like, and I know exactly what to expect. Now, Solomon ended up responding to that question, saying that turn-based strategy games are a natural fit for mobile devices because you can always pause the game and pick it right back up where you left off. He also goes on to say that turn-based play allows you the time to be reminded of what you were doing and make decisions on next steps. Then he also says that the part that amazes him, technically and design-wise, is that it turned out to be a good fit, and that playing a game that came out for console and PC last year on your phone is going to be possible on an iOS device. That's apparently blowing his mind. Now, although it is very nice, and I'm happy that we're getting all this porting over to different devices, I wouldn't call it groundbreaking. There's a lot of AAA releases that are going over to iOS now. And they're selling for a high price point because when you port it over to iOS, you need to change a lot of different coding. You need to change the interface so that it's touchscreen capable. So it's a very much so a new game. You can get a lot of different experiences out of an iOS version of a game over the PC or console release. So I think that it's good that we're seeing an XCOM being brought over to mobile, but I don't exactly know what's in store for it. Now, I've said my opinions on XCOM a million times. It was a very buggy game, but that did not make it a bad game. I greatly enjoyed XCOM, even though it had a lot of problems. Unfortunately, Firaxis never ended up fixing those problems, which is, I just can't stand when development houses do not fix problems with their games. But that's what Firaxis did, and it constantly annoys me. It constantly annoys me, but nonetheless, we can move past that. Now, 2K China actually did the conversion over to iOS for XCOM, but the base game code was still developed at Firaxis. So we don't exactly know how many bugs there will be in this iOS version. I'd imagine there will still be some spawning in issues and various other things, but the conversion was done by a different studio. So you never really know what you'll see from this. The interface has apparently been changed to make it more mobile friendly, which was obviously necessary. But the great thing about iOS is the fact that you can put this stuff away and come back to it later. That's why turn-based strategy games work so well, because then you could take your turn, then the enemy takes their turn, and if you don't want to play anymore, you can put it away and come back right where you left off, and that's awesome. Now, in terms of the price point that this iOS version of XCOM is going to be coming out at, it is going to be a premium app release, meaning it's going to be set pretty high. I'm not sure on the pricing of apps on various iOS devices. Just expect it to be a higher priced release, and they're hoping that it'll give us a ton of value. That has yet to be seen. Honestly, they're not trying to rip anybody off here. This is very much so them trying to earn a little extra profit off the name, though, so we'll see how it turns out. They're also possibly going to be shooting for Android, Vita, and the Wii U, so it would look like. And Solomon ended up responding to that, saying, "We wouldn't want to ignore potential platforms, but right now iOS seems like the right next step, and so we want to do our best to make the best version we can for mobile." So iOS is the target right now. It may go on to other platforms. Personally, I think it's like way too late to keep developing all these different platform releases because XCOM's a year old already. But what, are they going to release a version for the Wii U like 2 years down the road? It doesn't really make sense. So I think that iOS is probably going to be the last we're going to see of XCOM Enemy Unknown. Nonetheless, it's a good game, although buggy. And let's move on to the next couple of topics, which is heavily console focused, because that seems to be what everyone wants to hear about. We are running into a very significant time in gaming as of late. So the Xbox One reveal happened about a week or two ago, and people are already starting to pick it apart, and that's exactly what I'm going to do once again. So there's been people who have done this before me. I'm well aware of that. I shied away from talking about this for a while just because I didn't want to talk about something that I just felt completely negative about right after the reveal. I was very disappointed. Now I've had time to process it, and I've gotten a little bit better about it, but I still am very disappointed of how the reveal actually took place. I think Microsoft did a very bad job, and I think they didn't know their audience hardly at all. They targeted the average television watcher over the gamers that already know their platform. The Xbox 360 was a gaming rig. You did not have many other features until the end of its life cycle, where it started getting Netflix and Hulu Plus and various other fun little gadgets like that. You also got the internet and various other things, but the Xbox One is focusing a lot on the television and sports aspect of the console, and they're not so much focusing on gaming, which is a problem for me. I know the exact audience that Microsoft wants to target with this one. They are looking for what is known as a dude bro audience, where they will be searching for people that are essentially college students that want to switch in between Madden and watching actual football on their TV. They're going to be hanging out with friends on there. They're incorporating Skype a lot into this next system. To me, that is not important. I am a gamer, and if I really want to watch TV, then I can just switch on my TV that's running my Xbox. So it doesn't make too much sense to me. I don't understand their audience, and it doesn't really seem like they conveyed what they were going for very well. Now, the only thing that I'm hoping will happen is that E3 is when they're supposed to be revealing a bunch of exclusive titles that will be on the system, so I do still have hope for the system, but the Xbox One is off to a really rocky start. The press has been really bad for it thus far, and I hope that they can jump up a little bit, because otherwise we're going to have a monopoly with Sony on our hand, and I don't actually want that. I am by no means a PlayStation fanboy. I owned an Xbox 360, and it was my console of choice. I greatly enjoyed the friends, party, and private chat features that the system had, because I would talk with friends a ton on that, but the Xbox One is focusing way too much on it. It's taking away aspects from the gaming rig and moving it over to a more of a living room friendly console, which I don't think is the best idea. Your core base is gamers, and yet you're starting to take that feature away from them. So of course, many people are turned off to your system, and they're going to move over to a different gaming rig, which at this point is looking like the PS4. Now, the PS4 has gotten a ridiculous amount of good press, and the Wii U is certainly no competition. It's a very different platform. It's designed for, I guess, an older generation of people, where they can play Wii Sports. Wii Sports is like the #1 seller on the original Wii, and the Wii U is doing pretty much the same thing. Sales on the Wii U have been really bad, though, so we're not seeing much competition. Sony is pretty much taking the race at this point, and I don't think Microsoft can really get a ton of good press in time for this huge unveiling of all these games. I hope that Microsoft can pull out some really good exclusives. They're dropping a ridiculous amount of money on it, but you never really know. You can always have a lot of money on a game that just is not very good. Nonetheless, let's move on to a couple of topics in particular about the console that I found kind of funny or disturbing at the same time. based on polling and, of course, the stock market, we have seen an increase in the interest of the PS4 after the Xbox One reveal. So, ordinarily, you're going to see that after a reveal event of a brand new piece of technology or a new gaming rig or anything like that, it doesn't actually matter what it is. When, let's say, Chevrolet shows off a new truck, you're generally going to see a rise in their stock. So why the hell are we seeing Microsoft actually going down off of their reveal? Well, for one, it was god-awful. I mean, Sony's event was bad, but it was nowhere near as bad. I thought that Sony handled things much better in the fact that they talked about a bunch of new titles, and Microsoft focused on a whole new audience that gamers didn't actually care about. Microsoft is targeting a whole new group of people this time around. They're not focusing on the traditional gamer. They're focusing on what is known as the Dude Bro audience. They're focusing on the people that will play Madden and go watch actual football on their Xbox, and then they're going to go on Skype with their friends, maybe during the game, which we've seen. There's a ton of problems that I have with the system, and I could go on for days. I already talked about it in the last topic, but there's so much wrong. There's just so much wrong that I could go on for days, but nonetheless, the interest in the PS4 has actually risen. I find this hilarious. Now, we shouldn't be taking all the fans from Microsoft and switching them over to the PlayStation. I don't think that's a good idea, but I do understand why people have done it. It's because Microsoft has just done horrible with every bit of press they have. The PlayStation actually rose in popularity by about 7%, which is really high. Why the hell did so many people switch over to that system? It's just because of the reveal. That's all it was. These were taken a month after each other, these different polls, and there was a massive change. So the Xbox One also went down about 10% in popularity, and then there was an increase in 3% of people that said they would get neither of the consoles, which is perfectly fine. Now, when you have a bad reveal like this, you generally don't expect your competition to get every little bit of your sales, but in this case, wow, did Sony ever hit the jackpot. I'm shocked how many people have switched over to the PlayStation based off that horrible event. Now, the only saving grace for Microsoft right now is they're going to be announcing all of their big gaming and exclusive titles over at E3. That is the only thing that can save them now, because otherwise, if E3 is bad, there's going to be so many people pissed that they're going to go right over to Sony. Sony is destroying Microsoft in the console war right now. There's no competition. Sony is destroying the market. The Wii U is no competition for Sony either. The Wii U even targets a completely different group, so it's not even included in the polling. You can't really say that the Wii U can outsell the PlayStation. The original Wii did outsell both systems, but you have to understand that that's not a dedicated, really, gaming rig. It's more so just for, like, Wii Sports, and a lot of older people just got it so they could, quote-unquote, work out on the system. I don't know how much exercise you can really get out of doing, Wii bowling, but that's what people seem to think. So I guess that you do get a little active, and that's always nice. They got the firm supporting of those Get Active groups, and that definitely jumped up the sales. But I'm getting off topic. So, due to the stock market, we can definitely see that Microsoft screwed up. Microsoft, after the reveal, actually went down 1% in the stock market, whereas Sony jumped up 3%. Why? Why is that? I don't really understand. How could they do so poorly? How could they screw up so bad? Yeah, it boggles the mind, it really does. I think that Sony is just getting a ridiculous amount of good press just because of Microsoft's failures. Now, we cannot just take all the blame off of Sony when it comes to their system, though. Sony's system is not perfect. We haven't heard hardly anything about it because Microsoft's bad press is Sony's best press. We haven't actually heard if used games are going to be banned on that system. We haven't heard what the deal with DRM will be. We haven't heard much about anything, really. So let's not be so quick to say that Sony is the saving grace of the console war. We don't exactly know what they're doing either. Microsoft needs to get their crap together. They need to focus more on their business model and start actually appealing to gamers again, who is their main audience already. But with that done, let's move on to the last topic of the day and hope that Microsoft can actually redeem themselves in a small but very important way. Microsoft has finally done something right, and it's so relieving to see that Microsoft actually is responding to some consumer feedback. So, for a while there has been this privacy concern surrounding the Xbox One Kinect. At the reveal event, there was a stage demo that showed the Kinect being used to wake the console from sleep at a moment's notice. Now, there is no way to do that unless the Kinect was always online, and there was no way to turn it off, or so people thought. Now, Microsoft has finally responded to this, saying that there are going to be robust privacy settings, and there will also be the ability to turn the system off entirely. I'm happy that they're putting this in there, but I have to wonder how. I don't exactly know what they're going to do. Is it going to be some sort of option within the Xbox menu? Is it going to be some button on your console? Is there going to be a light when that Kinect is on? Is there not going to be a light at all? What are we going to see here? I don't understand exactly. Like, I don't care if you can turn it off through some contrived method in the privacy settings. I don't want that camera. Why is that, I don't get it. Why is that Kinect so mandatory with the system? When the system is online, there's no way to turn that off, I would assume, because they're saying that there will be robust privacy settings and the ability to turn the system off entirely. The system, not the camera, the system. They are talking about shutting your Xbox One completely off, not like turning off the camera alone. So I have to wonder exactly what we can do about this camera. There's going to be a lot of people that are literally going to put like a piece of duct tape over that camera, and I can't blame them. Privacy is a huge concern for people. With, there's so many pieces of technology that are just, they can be used to spy on people, and why would you give hackers of your system an extra incentive to do so? Why would you want them to be able to hack into your camera and actually spy on people in their living room? It's just really weird to me. I don't think that any of this should happen, but the Kinect is claimed to not always be watching or always listening. Now, the one thing that I'm a little concerned about is the idea that they say that you can have that camera off if you turn the system off entirely. Does this mean unplugging it? That would be really silly. If they're talking about unplugging the system just to get that camera off, I would go mental. At this point, we have no confirmation, and I really hope they don't do that. That is like the worst press they could ever have. So don't take that as fact. I have no idea what they're going to do. I hope I don't have to unplug my system just to get that camera off. That would be ridiculous. Now, if there were an option, then that would be better, but I still don't want the camera. I want to have the camera off while I'm playing games, too. Why would I want the Kinect on for a game that doesn't use Kinect? The only reason they're doing this is to keep an eye on people that are trying to, watch movies with multiple people in the room, which I don't even see as a problem because you're ordering. It bothers me how companies are moving in this direction towards just completely cash cowing it up. I hope we move past this. I really hope that people start to just rail on Microsoft until they stop all of this nonsense. The problem that we're going to face now, though, is there's already production of these Xbox Ones, so I don't even know if they're willing to change it. I wish they had shown a very, very early alpha version of this machine to get a lot of consumer feedback, then they could make changes appropriately. But right now, when this console is coming out in November, I don't think they're going to brainstorm all over again. That wouldn't make sense. We'll have to see what happens. I hope Microsoft is going to change some serious tech about that thing, because right now, I am not getting the Xbox One. I have no interest. I'm not probably going to get the PlayStation either. I'm a PC guy. I like objective games, and I like strategy games, which unfortunately do not work well on the consoles. Nonetheless, that is it for this episode of the News Hub. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you in future videos.